All right. Hey, what's going on? We're back. It's live. I'm live. You're live. We're live together. At least that's what we agree upon at this particular time. I'm Robert Phoenix, and welcome to another edition of Sunday Night AstroLive. How is everybody? Just waiting for a few folks to come on in here. We got the lovely Miranda Couch. She's here. Nice to see you, Miranda. Always excited for my insights. Well, I'm excited to be here. Insights, outsights, whatever they are, I'm excited. There's Joan S. Hi, Joan. Jimmers, Nicholas Grimm. Hello, Nicholas. Christine Moos. Hi, Christine. Good to see you. Tondar, Mary Grether. Hello, hello. Hamford Cheesenstein. Salutations. There's Lils, Double B, Beth Berry. What's going on? Nancy, Mia Love in the house tonight. Mia, I had a great conversation with my man from New Zealand, Mr. Murray Hill. I can't wait for Murray's tarot deck to show up. He showed me one of the illustrations. Boy, this deck is going to blow your mind. It's an amazing tarot deck, and he's worked on it for quite a bit, and hopefully he'll have some of those first copies in the next couple of months. And I'm looking to get about 100 of these decks brought over stateside, and they're just absolutely spectacular. So if you are in New Zealand, you'll be able to buy them from him directly in New Zealand, and we're figuring out a way to make those decks available here in the United States, and maybe also in places like Canada and Australia as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's nice to see you, Mia. They don't have him up yet, but he showed me one of the prints today. Boy, it is just, this guy is something else, man. I can't wait till his deck comes out. It's a game changer. Let's see. We got Lori Seiler. Hello, Lori. Lapisha Salu. Danica Rose. There's PB. Nathaniel Graham. Hi, Nathaniel. Nice to see you here. We'd still like to have a conversation with you. Hopefully, maybe sometime over the holidays when I sort of slow down a little bit. Susie. Hello, Susie. Susie the Sea Dragon. Hello, Susie. Let's see, who else do we have? Cheeky Monkey. What's going on? Nice to see you, Amy. Coach K's here. There's another Joan W. Nice to catch me live for a change. Well, live is where it's at, apparently. So theoretically, YouTube has a hard time with live stream algorithms. That's what I've heard, which is one of apparently they've got a challenge dealing with live stream algorithms. So I don't upload videos. A lot of the people that got booted from YouTube upload videos. I don't upload videos. This is it. We just hit go and hit start and we go. And that's one of the beauties of this show. And I'm sure that if I, did some, I don't know, post-production and maybe a little pre-production, it might be a little shinier and glossier, but I'm into the jazz ethos of sharing information. And I like it that way. I've always been into improvisation. Raven Rain is here. Hello, Raven. There's Mimi. Hello, Mimi. Michelle Canham Free. What a great name that is. Hello there. Let's see. Denise Walker from the Bay Area. Wow. The 49ers now cannot play at their stadium in Santa Clara, which is cursed, by the way. That is a cursed stadium. I'm telling you that right now. They had a guy die during the construction of that stadium. It's a cursed stadium. It's a cursed team. So they've got some shit going on. Santa Clara has been in a series of conflicts with the 49ers about who controls the revenue. And the 49ers have been strong up in Santa Clara. So Santa Clara said, yes, what? We're not going to allow any contact sports now due to COVID-19. And that includes you, San Francisco 49ers. So you can't practice here now. And you can't even play here. You're going to have to find a new place to play. So the San Francisco 49ers are probably going to be playing their home games, even though nobody was there at their field to actually watch them play. They're going to be playing their home games in Arizona, more than likely. such as the world of the NFL, where contact tracing and the tyranny of the mask is the law of the league. And a very interesting story coming out of Denver yesterday, when all of a sudden, at the very last moment, the Denver Broncos were told that all three of their quarterbacks will not be able to play in Sunday's game against the New Orleans Saints. Wow. Well, why? Well, here's what happened. Here's what happened. They were in a quarterback meeting. The quarterbacks all meet together. And one of the quarterbacks, Jeff Driscoll, had theoretically tested positive for COVID-19, whatever that means. So Jeff Driscoll was fine. And we know how the PCR tests work. They're garbage in terms of there are things that they can do that are okay, but not for what they're doing or using them for. So apparently, the three guys who were the quarterbacks for the Broncos, who were supposed to play today, well, they weren't wearing masks. And they were not really into wearing masks inside the meeting room. Now, the NFL is rolling out contact tracing for all their players. All their players. So I don't know how they found out that these three guys weren't wearing masks. Was it because they had an app on their phone? Was the NFL listening in? Were they wearing ankle bracelets? Or did they have a two-way with the computer? Did somebody inside the organization, or perhaps a reporter, rat out those three quarterbacks? Well, somehow the league found out, and guess what happened? They didn't have a quarterback today. They played a game without a freaking quarterback. They had to use a player that hadn't played quarterback since his second year in college, and he wasn't very good to begin with in college, and he changed positions. So as you might well surmise here, that the Denver Broncos didn't stand a snowball's chance in hell against the New Orleans Saints, and that's exactly how it wound up. Welcome to the NFL circa 2020, where they make up the rules as they go. Certain teams can postpone their games just in case one of their players might have tested positive for COVID-19. Hello, New England Patriots and Cam Newton. That said, the Denver Broncos, they don't get the same kind of latitude because they broke the rules. And now the league wants to set not just an example of what happens in the meeting room, but guess what? The New Orleans Saints had a really fantastic win a week or 2 weeks ago. And guess what happened? They were celebrating in their locker room. Imagine that. They were celebrating in their locker room, and the league caught wind of their celebration, and they fined the New Orleans Saints a draft pick, a 7th-round draft pick, because guess what? You cannot break the social distance barrier inside of the locker room. So even after a game, we are going through the biggest mindfuck operation I've ever witnessed. Okay, 9/11 was the equivalent of a magician at a 6-year-old's party compared to what we're seeing now. Okay, and 9/11 was pretty damn sophisticated if you think about it. I mean, it pulled off something pretty dramatic, and so dramatic that they got everybody to think that a couple of planes ran into those buildings, where when you look at the footage, ain't no planes flying into those buildings. Sorry, didn't happen. And I actually showed the footage here on the show, which was the anniversary of 9/11. So we're talking, well, we're almost 3 months ago now. So there were no planes. And yet they managed to get everybody to think that there were planes that flew into the building. That is a pretty slick trick. Same thing with the Pentagon. Oh, wow, they landed the plane in the Pentagon. Well, you really look at what happened and the damage and everything else that goes along. There was no plane there. Something was there. They had something flying into that Pentagon, but it wasn't a plane. Even with all that sophistication, what they've got going now is like 10 levels higher, right? 10 levels higher. And the reason why it's 10 levels higher is because when you look at 9/11, it was a really small, select group that was able to maintain the secrecy and the illusion to keep it under wraps. It's a small group. I would say this is going to be just a rough estimate that you'd probably be looking at maybe no more than 200 to 250 really key inside players, and that's it, right? Maybe there's another ring or two peripheral, 300, 350, but it's like the Manhattan Project, and they don't have all the pieces and all the parts. I'd say there's probably about 200 to 250 intact people that knew exactly what happened, who was involved, how they did it, but this is something else, right? Because back then, everybody was essentially participating or cohabiting together with these people in the illusion. I wasn't, and I knew it was garbage. I knew that whoever did it, like it wasn't Iran, it wasn't Iraq, it wasn't Saddam Hussein, it wasn't any of them. And then slowly but surely, it didn't take long to figure out who did do it. So, but now, now it's crazy because guess what? You've got all these other people that are carrying out the illusion. You have all these other people that are participating in the trick, like they're the magician's assistants, is what they are. So you have somebody like Mike Florio who works for Pro Football Talk, and he has a website, and every day he's got headlines. He's got a show in the morning, and Mike Florio has always been a full-on lefty. He's a lawyer. He's one of these guys that is a carpetbagger, and he came from the north, and now he lives in West Virginia. And I think he was probably some kind of a union lawyer or labor lawyer or something like that. He's got that feel about him. And then he got out of, well, he didn't really get out of law. He still has a practice, but he started to do Pro Football Talk, and it started off as a blog, and then it mushroomed into this show that they play every morning on NBC. He does it from his home, and I didn't really know a lot about him to start off with, and then I started to watch. I'm like, this motherfucker, all he cares about is, the progressive, democratic, left liberal. I don't have any problem with people that have, true liberalism as part of their spirit. But when there's an agenda, like, when there's an agenda, and as soon as he got on the Colin Kaepernick train, like he was shoveling coal on the Colin Kaepernick train. Oh, this is terrible. Oh, it's an injustice. It's like, guy can't play football anymore, Mike. He can't play football. He doesn't want to play. And every time a quarterback would get hurt, oh, but Colin Kaepernick is not on that team. Well, it's like, give it up, man. The guy doesn't want to play football. He's a Neiman Marxist. He makes too much money for Nike as their face of the Cultural Revolution. He doesn't have to get hit, get pummeled, study film. He'll never play football again. But oh no, he's one of the Kaepernick apologists. Got to go find a job for Colin Kaepernick. Well, guess what happened when George Floyd hit? Well, Mike Florio went into fucking overdrive, and everything became about race. And then he's a Gemini, and he has his Gemini buddy Peter King come on there, and they both hate Trump, and they both hate conservatives. They think they have the enlightened perspective, when it comes to social discourse and social theory, and they're really just nothing more than virtue signaling simps. But Florio is dangerous, and the reason why he's dangerous is he provides a platform for forwarding an agenda. And now all he writes about on his website is COVID this, COVID that, COVID this, COVID that. And these saying, well, the Broncos have nobody to blame but themselves. Are you fucking kidding me? They have nobody to blame but themselves. This is where we are now. We have people like Mike Florio and all these other high-level Karens that carry on this this almost crusade-like zealotry when it comes to social distancing and wearing a mask and doing the right thing. And then I go in and I read the comments, and I'm like, oh, we are fucked. We are screwed because 80% of these comments, 85% of these comments, they're all pro-mask, and they're like, oh, they deserve that. Oh, they should be jailed. Oh, I mean, it's just ridiculous. The Stockholm syndrome around this thing is absolutely frightening. It's become like the Stanford prison experiment. This is what this has become. And, all the little mask tards, who feel like it's also important to wear a mask, have become the prison guards in the open air Stanford prison experiment because they have no power in their life. And now all of a sudden they have a little bit of power. And now they have a forum with Mike Florio, who allows them to, vent their outrage over the fact that 3 quarterbacks didn't wear a mask while they were meeting in a quarterbacks meeting. Oh, it's their fault. Oh, really? It's their fault? Oh, I see. But you confront these people, and I've sent them stuff about the PCR test. I've sent them stuff about the nurses. All this evidence, they don't give a shit. Journalists don't even do journalism anymore. A real journalist asks questions. A real journalist wants to dig into things. Why is this happening? Can you tell us why this is happening? Can you provide evidence? Let's go over here and check this source. Let's double check over here. Let's get a different piece of information here and throw them together and see what happens. That's dead. That is dead. You know what journalists do now? They are nothing more than mouthpieces. They're given a piece of information via press release, and they just report the fucking press release. That's all they do. Journalism is dead. It's dead. Nobody does real journalism. Even what's his name? The guy who started. I'm having a moment here. The Edward Snowden guy, Glenn Greenwald. Like his own publication, the online publication that he started because the Guardian was censoring his work, his own publication kicked him out. The one that he started, right? And this is a guy who's, pretty much a pretty real journalist. I mean, I don't buy all the Edward Snowden stuff, but he was, he got kicked out of his own website, his own publication's dead. Journalism's dead. Even though the True Notice in Gemini, which is a sign of journalists, we're not really getting the journalistic kind of, perspective on things. And even when you see these journalists, question the sanctimonious Sagittarian known as Andrew Cuomo during one of his news conferences about the levels and why kids are not going to school, those are journalists. They're doing what they were supposed to. They're actually asking questions. Tip of the cap to them. And what does Cuomo do? He goes all South Node Sag on them and just berates them, belittles them, makes them feel like they're just absolutely insignificant. And he's very good at that. He's mastered the art of making other people feel insignificant. And that is a sign of somebody who's absolute vampire, just feasting off the energy of other people's discomfort and the supposed insignificance that they cast them with. All right. So even when journalists try to, find out, get to the bottom, what does Cuomo do? He just blows them off and then he berates them. So we're having a real journalism problem right now. And again, on Saturday, there was this woman who kicked off for Wake Forest. First time a woman ever kicked off in a division, set her foot on a Division I football field. And it was like the second coming of Christ. Okay. I mean, the silence. Oh my God, this is a hallowed moment. Ladies and gentlemen, hold your breath. You're witnessing history. It was like fucking Neil Armstrong, in the fake moon landing. That's what it was like. And she gets up there and started the second half. Okay, second half. And she kicks it. She kicked it about 35 yards. It's a squib kick, not even a very good kick. Almost goes out of bounds. And it's like, oh my God, the world has changed. Just because of that one play. But nobody really asked any questions. Like, well, why did they choose her? I mean, if they really wanted to kick her, maybe they were down to kick her, why wouldn't they choose a guy from the men's soccer team? I'm just, throwing that out there. We all know the reason why. Because Wake Forest wanted to have a nice, big, fat virtue signal. They didn't have a very good team, so they wanted to have some publicity. Now they get the attaboys. Oh, athletic director of the year, whoever it is from Wake Forest, in his sterling effort to promote athletic diversity. It's like that's what they'll get. They'll get, everybody gets a trophy. It's a little trophy time. But nobody asked the question why. Well, why did they get a different player? Why didn't they get somebody from the intramural squad or the men's soccer? They don't ask. They just report back that this is really important. Now, however, when it comes to somebody like Sidney Powell or we'll throw Rudy in there, Lynn Wood, oh my God, now all of a sudden they're becoming journalists. Now all of a sudden, oh, well, we got to be journalists now. Whoa, we have to ask all the hard questions. All the hard questions you're not asking the other people, you're going to ask them, but you won't even ask them questions. You'll phrase the questions and turn them around into rhetorical questions, which become statements. Right? A rhetorical question is an inverted statement, is what it is. And that's what we have. And now all of a sudden, you could just look at, we're looking at Sidney Powell's chart tonight. Again, I don't have her birth time, so I'm playing around a little bit. But you just look at the headlines, Sidney Powell, former prosecutor turned conspiracy theorist, the QAnon attorney. It's like, this is where they're going. It's nothing but ad hominem attacks. There's no real Q&A. They don't want to know. They don't want to sit down and say, Sidney Powell, let's have a serious interview. Let's have a serious interview. When they do that, they don't even have a serious interview anymore. All they want to do is just jump them. It's like guerrilla warfare. They're just hiding behind a bush, waiting to come out and pummel the person with any number of questions that try to pin them in a corner or get them into a gotcha moment. There's no real sense of, hey, what's really going on here? You say that there's a lot of claims. Let's talk about them. How can you back them up? Where can we go? That would be almost like aiding and abetting the enemy. They can't do that now. They'd lose their job. If you were a journalist and you came at it from that perspective, you would lose your job. You know why? Because you would be doing the work of a journalist. You wouldn't be doing the work of a propagandist. And that's really what everything has become. Journalism has descended into propaganda, state, corporate, or otherwise. Now, the true node is still in Gemini, right? It is getting ready to move into the Libran decan. Because remember now, the nodes move in different directions. So it's been in the Aquarian decan ever since it went into Gemini, just after that major eclipse that took place. The last eclipse we had when the sun was at zero Cancer, right? It was at zero Cancer. We had that big eclipse at zero Cancer. And right after that, the node shift. And it was right around then when the shit really hit the fan. That's when we were moving into George Floyd territory. That eclipse was significant. Really, really significant. And that's, that 0 degrees is in the Sabian symbols is, when a ship at sea lowers one flag and raises another, that's symbolic of a false flag, right? That's what the false flag is all about. You have one flag up there and, the other ships are going, hey, you're a good, you're friendly. We like you. Yeah. Hey, come on over, let's have some mackerel and some mead. And then all of a sudden they get closer and closer and closer. And then Here come the cannons. And then just before they fire, the flag comes down, and then the other flag comes up. Normally a skull and bones flag. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh no. And then boom, they lower the boom on. That's a false flag. That is the definition of a false flag. Somebody flies one flag, like, okay, we're cool. And then all of a sudden they're flying a very different flag. And it was right after that we started to have the George Floyd stuff. But the symbol also goes to the Bolshevik Revolution. The Bolshevik Revolution, because it was the Navy that turned the tide for the Bolsheviks against the Tsar and the Tsaress, the Romanovs. The Navy decided that they were not going to defend the Tsar and the Tsaress, and they were going to be a part of the provisional government. There's always a provisional government. There's always a provisional government, right? Like, so Kerensky was the guy who was supposed to take power, and then he was supposed to share power with the Bolsheviks. Bolsheviks don't share power. They don't share power. They're like, you helped us get here. And it's not even like, hey, thanks a lot, good job. No, go over there to that nice piece of land we have reserved for you, and, go live out your days. And they don't do that. They don't do that. No, they take you out and they take you to the firing squad. That's what they do, because they don't share power. And that's what happened to Kerensky. That's what happened to the provisional government. Same thing happened in Rhodesia. Once Ian Smith left, they had a provisional government there. There was a guy who was, he was a minister, and he was there for, I don't know, 2 years maybe, until Robert Mugabe elbowed his way in, and bye-bye provisional government. Hello, Robert Mugabe, the commie from hell, who was, really one of the great murderers in modern African history. And they've had some great ones. Mugabe was right up there. Right up there. Mugabe, Samuel Doe, Colonel Robert Taylor. Those are some bad people. So there's always a provisional government, but it doesn't last very long. And that's what we're looking at with Biden Harris, right? Biden is the provisional government. Biden is Kerensky. Biden is the minister, I forget the guy's name, from Rhodesia, who's only there for about a year until, guess what? The commies get their hooks in. And then that's gone. That's done. Because they don't want people to have the shock to their system. So they always have a provisional government. Always have a provisional government. Same thing happened in Iran after the Shah. They had a provisional government. Well, that was only just for a brief period of time until they could bring the Ayatollah in. They don't want, the Ayatollah was brought in. He was a CIA operation. That's a false flag. That's what happened when the Russian Navy, Raskolnikov, right? They just, one flag goes down. Hey, we're flying the hammer and the sickle because we've changed allegiances. And that's exactly what happened on that eclipse. It was a big eclipse. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was June 23rd. And that happened at zero Cancer. That was a big one, man. That was June 23rd. Yeah, June 23rd. That was a huge one. It was very intense. And that's when the true node went into Gemini. So I'm pretty sure that was the day. Let me just go back. I want to look at that day. Hold on. I gotta be with it here. I have to be accurate. Let's see. It seems like such a long time ago now. It's just crazy. Crazy, man. Crazy. Okay, that was the June 21st eclipse. That's right. It was June 21st. And this is what it looked like. This is where it was happening. The eclipse path was really not in the United States. It was really out there, man. Punjab, Rajasthan. So that went through India. But the bigger, let me see if I get the bigger path here on this thing. That's it. That's the one. Let's go back. Yeah, I'll show it to you. Right here. So by that time, the George Floyd stuff was already rocking and rolling. But this is when the nodes shift and go into Gemini. So you can see the eclipse path here. Right. So we can look at this other eclipse that's coming up, which we're going to talk about tonight. It's happening right now as we speak. Right here. It's a Beaver Moon. Beaver Moon. So here's where the eclipse is taking place. Right here. It's already on. It is already on. I'm going to talk about it. I was on another website earlier today, and they had some guy, talking astrology, and he said, "Well, we got the big lunar eclipse, and the market's going to collapse." I'm like, "Nah, market's not going to collapse. We're not going to have major tremors and aftershocks with the market until the Scorpio Taurus eclipses. We're not there yet, but I said this eclipse is happening on Joe Biden's Saturn, and Joe Biden's Saturn is in Kamala Harris's 12th house. I said that earlier today. I said Biden's going to disappear and Harris is not far behind him. And lo and behold, what happened? Apparently, Joe Biden tripped over his dog. And now he's not going to make any meetings. Isn't that interesting? You can see that coming a mile away. Anyway, here we go. This is what's happening right here. This is the eclipse path. And we are in it right now. Right now. The Beaver Moon. You want to watch it live? Here we go. It's live in 6 hours. Okay, so 6 hours from now, you'll be able to watch this penumbral lunar eclipse. So it is a partial lunar eclipse, but it's on. It is definitely on. Anyway, welcome to tonight's show. If you don't know who I am, I'm Robert Phoenix, and this is Sunday Night AstroLive, and this is where we talk about astrology, mostly mundane astrology, people, places, events, and clearly we have a ton to go over tonight. The Beaver Moon is known as the full frost moon due to the cold temperatures of November. Native Americans called it the Beaver Moon because they associated it with when beavers finished building their lodges made of branches and mud to prepare for winter. So the lunar eclipse will be visible during the Beaver Moon, full Beaver Moon. This sounds like a porn film. Full Beaver Moon, doesn't it? Full Beaver Moon. Bad porn film, 70s. All right, here we go. Let's do our little invocation here so that our space can be protected. We can be guided through this moment in time, other moments in time. And for those who are not part of this stream and who are having a very difficult time of things, and there are a lot of people who are having extremely challenging times right now. I've witnessed, a fair amount of video from all over the world this weekend, and some of the events and some of the incidents are quite shocking to say the least. And we have been rapidly thrust into a Philip K. Dickian universe where the boot on the throat or the boot on the face is the symbol of justice in the dark winter. So let's say a little something for the people who are out there, who are vulnerable, who are scared, who don't know what to do, but they know their world is rapidly changing and crumbling. Maybe they've lost a family business. Maybe they've lost a family member because they don't see eye to eye, that there's strife and turmoil in their lives, not being able to make a bridge between their world and the world of somebody that they love, or at least at one point in their life did love. So we're going to hold those people in our space tonight. I'm going to try to say something that evokes a little protection for these folks. Okay, so here we go. Dear blessed and holy Mother, Father God, of the great central sun within the universal light, which is the light of Yeshua, Sananda, Emmanuel. We ask that only the highest and best information and truth come through this channel at this time. And in so doing, for all the people, all the beings, all the souls in this world who are frightened and scared, who fear the implications of a world that has become cold, unfamiliar, and unremitting in its sense of order, in its sense of protocol, in its sense of law. We ask that these people be given relief, peace in their hearts, the ability to see clearly through the darkness, and courage that emanates through each and every cell and fiber of their being, so that they may rise to the occasion in their life when the time comes, so that they may be there for others as much as they can be there for themselves. And we ask this for each and every one of them, and us included, as we include ourselves in this prayer with their life and ours, as we are one. So be it. All right, let's go. So let's get into some stuff here. Where do I want to start? Let's go with Biden. Let's go with Biden. I want to bring up Biden's chart because I think this is news. We got news. We got cosmic news with Joey B. Hey, Joey B. All right. Whoever Biden is. Whoever he is. Whoever this character is. Whatever he is. All right. There we go. There's a Saturn. See it right there? Bada bing. And here is the lunar eclipse coming in right there. Bang. Right there. Now, that is in the house of partnerships. He's in a partnership with Kali Ma Harris, right? He's in a partnership with her. But there's something is now eclipsing whoever this guy, Joe Biden's chart, the partnership aspect. It's eclipsing partnership. And, he is Saturnian, right? Meaning that he's older. He's an older dude. And Saturn is in, I'll show you Harris's chart too when we're done with this. So his Saturn is in Harris's 12th house. Now, the true node, when it was in the first 9 degrees of Gemini, meaning from roughly 29 to 20, that is the Aquarian decan. So, of course, we went through a dark Aquarian spell. Everybody became much more detached. I mean, if you also think about like social distancing, it's really kind of an Aquarian thing, because Aquarius is detached, it's airy. Now, it's not to say that there aren't really, touchy-feely Aquarian people. I mean, there are, but by and large, it's not Cancer, okay? It is not Cancer. So Cancer would have a very hard time with social distancing. Cancer, when they're on, just wants to be cuddly and, huggy. And, Cancer's a cozy sign. Aquarius would never be considered cozy. And neither would Capricorn. But the thing that separates Aquarius from Capricorn is that at least Aquarius at times can have a good feeling associated with it. Capricorn doesn't always have a good feeling. Capricorn is, okay, well, what can I get out of this? How is this going to affect me? How can it assist me? How can I use it? Where is the thrift in the economy around this? That's very Capricornian. And Aquarius isn't always like that. Aquarius is a little more, how shall we say, eccentric. So there's a bit more wiggle room in Aquarius. That said, both signs tend to be fairly detached, but for different reasons. Now, once you heat a Capricorn up, well, that's a different story, because beneath the sort of, cold and efficient Capricorn exterior, there lies a very earthy person, very earthy. And you may not, you may know this, but some Capricorns can be really sneaky good lovers. Like on the surface, they may not be all that approachable, but when that comes down, they're very earthy, they're very tactile, extremely tactile, and it's a lusty sign, but that doesn't always come out when you deal with them. Maybe later in life, Capricorns have more of a warm and fuzzy vibe about them. Bowie was a Capricorn, and the guy was incredibly detached. He's Aquarius rising. He's like so detached. But as he got older, he became more carefree, and that was my experience around him. So I think he's a pretty good example of a Capricorn that sort of dropped a lot of the detached sort of detached stances or the detached persona. So social distancing to me is quite Aquarian. It's detached. It's like, hey man, this is my space. It's my space. You got your space. I got my space. Okay, cool, right? Yeah, that's how it's going to work. So we've experienced some of that with the first decan of the true node in Gemini. Now it's moving into that Libran decan. So here we go. Here's the true node, and right here we got 19 degrees. It is now in the Libran decan, which is interesting because now we're into things like balance and justice, fairness, relationship, equality, equanimity. I guess maybe the female soccer kicker might have been a symbol of that. I don't know. Certainly equity, but it's fascinating because we're witnessing this nodal shift as we move into this phase where Trump is really still trying to root out the corruption with the election process. And it's, depends on who you talk to. Some people say, oh, it's just going great according to plan. They're losing every case along the way and just accelerating right up to the Supreme Court. And then you talk to somebody else and, well, Jesus, they keep losing everything. And by the way, they had a court-appointed judge by Trump in Pennsylvania overturn Trump. And the Wisconsin votes came out Biden. And, Lynn Wood's talking about how they're erasing the votes as we speak in Georgia. So on the one hand, which is completely Gemini, we're getting these messages like, eh. On the other hand, we're getting, hey, it's fine. We just get to the Supreme Court faster. I don't think the Supreme Court is a slam dunk, by the way. I talked with Jay about that on Reality Check. By the way, if you want to see the show that we did together, it's over on Jay Widener's channel, Reality Check. It was a good show. And I always enjoy working with Jay and bringing our two perspectives together. So the interesting thing that he brought up was, and this is true, because when I was talking this time last year about the coming year on his show, like I was not really positive and I was soft selling this thing. I mean, I was really doing my best to find a silver lining with where we're, because I could see it. It was like, geez, man, we got some shit coming. Like it is going to happen. And I remember actually reading the comments on Jay's YouTube page, and there is not a lot of love for me. Not that I really care that much about it, but it's like, oh man, you're so negative, and it's gonna be fine. And it's like, well, okay, I don't want to have to tell you I told you so. I don't really want to do that. I mean, Jay and I both talked about that. You never want, when you talk about this stuff, you never want to be right. If you're going down the dark path, you don't want to be right. There's no joy in being right. There's just none. I mean, people are having a very difficult time. And it's like, yeah, see, no, it's bullshit. So we do have a different scenario. We do have a different how shall we say this, cosmic atmosphere for 2021. We're not out of the woods. There's a difference, though, in that there are more wild cards in the deck, and I'm going to talk about that. But anyway, you could check that out on Jay's channel. And so it was good. We talked about a lot of other stuff too. So here we go. Here's that true node. Now remember, it's in the Libran decan. The Libran decan, which means there's an emphasis on everything that we're talking about, right? Everything that we're talking about. Balance, synastry, synergy, adjudication, judgment, right? This is what's being worked out. Now, the South Node is definitely in the detriment in Sagittarius when it comes to law. There is no law right now. There's no law. There's no law except if you were to break a law. Oh, then there's a law. Oh, you would have to deal with the severity of the law. I guarantee you that right now. But Cuomo, Mayor Andy, Mayor Nipples, he anyway, when the Supreme Court said, hey, New York, you gotta let people go and worship in their churches. Do you know what he did? That's what he did. He said, that doesn't affect us here. There is no law. There's no law. Why? Why is there no law? Well, we've got the South Node. And by the way, the South Node is now moving into its second decan as well. So that South Node is moving into the Leo decan, which is very, very dramatic, over the top, lots of hyperbole. Also, people with the Leo syndrome. By the way, shout out to David Leo King. It was great having you last week on the show. Fantastic show. We'll do it again sometime. But no, I'm not talking about him in this regard. It just popped into my head. So what is the Leo syndrome? Well, you have these tyrants, these potentates, these local tyrannical potentates, from the governors to the mayors, who are wielding divine right. Really, I mean, that's what's going on. That's the South Node, Sagittarius in the Leo decan. These are false kings and queens. Sometimes the king might actually be a queen, and guess what? Now we're talking really false king. But this is what's going on now. We're seeing this. We're seeing these people who really have no authority in any real sense of the word, claiming absolute authority. So, well, why is that? Well, it might have to do with the fact that the United States has been decoupled. There is no federal government anymore. There's no federal government. This ended when Trump declared a national emergency on March 13th. And then there was another subsequent declaration which decoupled the federal government from the states. So, and this is an important piece, especially as it relates to the Supreme Court. If this is true, then would a Supreme Court ruling in favor of Trump in the election stick if these two national emergency declarations are still intact? That's a really important question, because it feels like right now anything the Supreme Court does could be delegitimized, just like how Cuomo said, fuck it. We've got our own laws now here. We don't have to listen to the Supreme Court. That's exactly what he said. And there's nobody going into the state of New York to reprimand him or tell him otherwise. The rights of people to worship in their churches, it's considered a civil right. A civil right. John F. Kennedy sent troops. He sent National Guardsmen into Alabama to make sure Black students could attend the University of Alabama. And when those National Guard soldiers showed up, George Wallace waved the white flag Said, I give up. This is it. That's what Kennedy did. We've got people now who can't even go to fucking church. Okay. And where are the people to protect them and their quote unquote civil rights or their religious rights or religious rights? It's not there. They're not there. You know, you don't see any marshals, U.S. marshals, escorting people to a church. It's not happening. You have to ask yourself why, especially after the Supreme Court basically ruled New York, you got to let him go. And Cuomo, you know, it's like, hey, sit on this, right? So now we have that South Node and that glaring leonine, you know, kind of overreach. Meanwhile, we're trying to find balance over here with the true node. And, you know, I was watching this poor guy from, what was his name? Steele or Savage, the guy who owns the brewery in Maine, the brewery restaurant in Maine, that Janet Evans is just, she's just taking a wrecking ball to this guy's life. I mean, a total wrecking ball. The guy's got 60 pages of court documents. You know, he's been on Tucker Carlson a few times. I mean, he's having a really brutal time keeping his restaurant. They have devoted a wing of the Maine government solely to make sure this guy shuts down because he doesn't want to shut down. So what is he doing? He's over here trying to balance this thing out. He's trying to balance out the need for he's got 60 people that work for him at this restaurant. And they do catering and all this other stuff, right? He's trying to balance all this out. Meanwhile, you have this tyrannical, you know, potentate, this false queen of the state of Maine who is making his life hell, and nobody is there to stick up for this guy. This is where we are, people. It's where we are. So we're trying to find balance now. He's trying to find some balance in his life, balance in the fact that he could, you know, perhaps get some. There's no place to go. There is no place to go. Like, he could take that decision to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court could rule that he is entitled to keep his business open. They could just say, just like Cuomo, sorry, what are you going to do about it? What are you going? Because there cannot be any law without the enforcement of it. So just because the Supreme Court said Andrew Cuomo, hey, look, you're going to have to let these people go to church. If there's nobody to enforce that, Cuomo's not going to obey it. Why should he? Why should he? He doesn't have to. It's all, and he knows that. He absolutely knows that. And that South Node is going to hit his sun at some point, and he'll be exposed. So let's bring it back to Biden here. Biden's got some issues. He's got that eclipse right on his Saturn. He has issues. And I'm not sure if he'll be around for much longer. Because when I did the math today on that, right? When I did the math today, I can even show you the timestamp if you want to see it. I don't see it. When I did the math, I'm like, oh, he's going to disappear. He's going to disappear. I mean, that's what the eclipse does. That's what the eclipse energy on his Mars does. I'm sorry, Saturn does. It darkens it, right? Saturn's authority. Saturn is partnership. And this is all being eclipsed right now. Let's go to Harris's chart. It's not a, I didn't cast it. It's just coming from another website. Let me see if I can find it. Let's shut this down here. Here we go. Oh, all right. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. I started doing a new YouTube channel today. I don't know where it's going to go. All right, come on, Harris. Where are you? I just had it up here. Here it is. Okay. So let me give you the visual. So I can show what I'm talking about. We get this bigger. Yeah. All right, this is come on. Kali Ma Harris. She's got that 24 Gemini rising, right? So she's peaked. Kali Ma has peaked. When that true node was between 0 Cancer and roughly 24, 23 Gemini, which was right prior to the election, at the election, bang, that's peaked. She's peaked. Now the true node is disappearing into her 12th house. Okay. So for all intents and purposes, she's on ice. And look, she could be in the public eye, or she could be seen somewhere, or she might make a statement, but her energy is not out in the world. It is not in the world. It is behind the scenes. It's 12th house. And, the 12th house represents a lot of things. And one of the things 12th house represents is prisons. Now, I'm not saying that Kali Ma Harris is in prison, but she will not, her energy is not on full display anymore. And as we go further into the rest of this month and the first part of 2021, that true node is only going to get deeper. Now, she'll come back again at some point, but in the immediate future, behind the scenes, hidden, can't see her. Where is Sleepy Joe's Saturn? Right here, right? Bang. It's right there. So the lunar eclipse is also happening in her 12th house. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes in Kali Ma's chart. And Mars is coming up here on her moon. She was born on a full moon. A lot of these people have full moon energy in their charts. Trump, full moon, eclipse moon. So you can see the opposition, right? This is why she comes off harsh. It's that Aries moon squaring Saturn. You see that square right there? Actually, that's a sextile. What's it squaring? No, that's a Jupiter squaring Saturn. No, she's got a sextile going to Saturn. God bless her. But that's a hard moon, right? That's the 27th degree of Aries, final decan. It's kind of all over the place. And it's by and large a kind of masculine moon, a pretty masculine moon. And she is not a pleasant person. I can tell you, look, if I didn't know who she was and I just looked at this chart, I tell you right now, she's not a pleasant person. She's got Venus in Virgo, which is harsh, man, critical. Conjunct Pluto, conjunct Uranus. Right there, right? That is a brutal stellium in Virgo and in the 3rd house, which is mutable and inconstant. This is a hard aspect right here, right there, bang. And people at Venus Pluto conjunctions, they're into power. They're into power, and they will, just like you have Venus and Scorpio is a really power oriented aspect of Venus, it's a very powerful alignment with Venus and Scorpio. So having a Venus Pluto conjunction is similar, except Pluto is dominating, right? Venus and Scorpio, you're dealing with the planet and you're in the sign that it's in. It's not the best place for Venus. It really is like intensely connected to power, either sexual power, money power, psychic power, and there can be real intense like power exchanges with Venus in Scorpio. People can be tops, they can be bottoms, they can switch over their life, they can go through a period where they're really powerless and they're at the mercy of other people, and all of a sudden they flip it, they turn the table, and they transform the relationship, and the next thing you know, they're like a dungeon master with Venus and Scorpio. But this is different. When Pluto comes in with Venus, it is overwhelming. It's a bit different, right? It's overwhelming because Pluto is connected to obsession. Pluto is this force of the underworld, and she's got it. And then she's got that Venus-Uranus conjunction, which throws it into a completely different universe, right? She's, you know, Venus Uranus people are very eccentric, but you have Pluto at the midpoint, and like this is not a person you want in charge of this country. I'm sorry. You do not want this person in charge of this country with these aspects. Mars and Leo, 21 degrees. You know, that's powerful. Like Mars and Leo is powerful. And she's got that trine to the moon. You know, this is somebody who, when they set their mind to go get something, Mars, Moon trine, they will work at it. They will work at it. And then you have the obsession, the obsession of the relationship with power with Venus Pluto conjunction. Now, Mars is in square with Jupiter, and that can be an overabundance of confidence in not knowing how and where they need to set limits. Like, you know, like when Tulsi Gabbard completely bitch slapped her, she probably thought that she had everything in the bag, that she was so smart and she was so on it, and she was gonna, you know, run this old man right off the debate stage. So who was that old man? Oh yeah, it was Joe Biden. Joe Biden. And she accused him of being a racist. And then a few months later, like, Joe, this is what Joe is really all about. It's like, fuck you. 6 months ago, you know, he was a Klan member, you know, and now he's your golden key to the White House. But she didn't see that coming. That, you know, that Mars Jupiter square can be overconfidence. And all of a sudden, Tulsi Gabbard. I don't care whatever Tulsi Gabbard ever does for the rest of her life. Whatever she does, I don't care. But that moment, that was a great moment. And she's, you know, we looked at their charts. Tulsi's the exact opposite of Kali Ma. Tulsi's got like 3 or 4 planets in Aries. She is a badass. And she badassed her way right through Kamala Harris's campaign, and it was over. And Kamala, or Kali Ma, has a square with Neptune, Mars Neptune square. You know, those are tricky squares, and I've talked about them before. They can result in things like addiction. But when we're talking about Mars and Leo squaring Neptune and Scorpio, this is somebody who has to pump themselves up, that they have to believe that they're a supernatural force with that Mars Neptune square. They have to believe it. They may have just absolutely crappy confidence and self-esteem, but with that Mars Neptune square, they'll convince themselves otherwise, and especially with the Mars Jupiter square. So that's a dangerous combination. This T square is just completely out of touch. I mean, Trump's got some challenges with his chart, but you don't want this person anywhere near the White House making huge decisions or following the orders of somebody else. You just don't want it to happen. That's not to say that she doesn't have some, you know, powerful aspects. She's got that sun trine to the midheaven, sun trine Saturn, and she's like in this thing for, you know, the long haul. She's got endurance. She'll do whatever it takes. She has Mercury and Scorpio conjunct her sun. And people that have Mercury and Scorpio tend to be very, you know, at times deep thinkers. At times they can be profound problem solvers and researchers. I haven't seen it. All I've seen, and maybe she is behind enemy lines, but all I've seen is somebody who is really harsh. And but she's got that true node dropping right back there. Okay, now the solar eclipse in Sagittarius is going to be over here, and that's going to be very close to her descendant. So this is an interesting kind of a 1-2 punch, right? So we have the eclipse moon on Biden Saturn conjunct his descendant, and we're going to see this eclipse coming up on the 14th essentially conjunct her descendant. So both eclipses are going to be hitting Biden and Harris's cusp of partnership and contracts. That's going to be interesting. Very interesting. I don't think they're going to make it. I don't think this is a marriage that has a lot of tread on the tire, if you know what I'm saying. All right, let's check in with you guys. See where you're at. I'm Mars and Scorpio. Who is Mars and Scorpio? First house. I'll tell you something about Mars and Scorpio people. I have witnessed the most kind of plain, goofy, odd-looking people with Mars and Scorpio. Not to say that you are, Susan. I would never say that, by the way. But I've witnessed that. And we're talking not classically like handsome or not classically beautiful people. All right. Some are. Hey, not saying. I've just seen it. And I've seen these people who have Mars and Scorpio, and they are like fucking sex magnets. People just pick up on their vibe, right? It's that Mars Scorpio magnetism. I've seen it. I was with a buddy of mine one night. And he had Mars and Scorpio. And we were walking into this bar down by Fisherman's Wharf. You know, we'd had a few drinks and we're walking in. And he was, you know, he's a good guy and, you know, kind of a interesting face, you know. But I wouldn't call him like, you know, classically handsome. He was no Chad. And we're walking in, and there was this really good-looking woman. And she's walking out, and all of a sudden she sees him and just walks right up to him and starts kissing him. It's like, it's that Mars and Scorpio thing. I've seen it. Mars and Scorpio has deep charisma and deep magnetism, especially in the first house. I have Venus and Virgo in house, 7th house. Well, I will say that you better hope that your partner is neat. That's what I would say. Last year, Harris has yet to give her Senate seat. This is true. She's still holding on to the Senate seat. I'm telling you, man, their partnership is on the rocks. On the rocks. Yes, my dad did have Mars and Scorpio. Yes. John Candy energy. Very good analysis of the president, vice president, not elects. No, they're in trouble. I'm telling you. These eclipses are both hitting their 7th house cusp. They're in trouble. That partnership is on the rocks. On the rocks. Yes, indeed. What did Lils have to say? Mars and Scorpio walks into a bar. That's funny. Yeah, man. No, this it was like, oh, there it is. There's that Mars and Scorpio. You know who else has Mars and Scorpio? Jasper. He has Mars and Scorpio. That's animal magnetism right there. Look at that. Look at that. Power. Rawr. Okay. What else do we have? Will they be imprisoned? I don't know. What is on the rocks? Off the rocks? Was it ever off the rocks? Well, let's just say they had a gentleman's agreement. A gentleman's agreement. Gemini. Let's see. Gemini, Sun, Sag, Rising, Eclipse Trepidation. Yeah, just go with it. Just go with it. You know, just go. That last eclipse, by the way, that one on June 21st, that was right on my Mars. It was right on my Mars in my 8th house. And I'm like looking, I'm just trying to look and say, geez, I got a freaking solar eclipse on my Mars at 0 degrees in my 8th house. Gee. What's going to happen with this thing? As an astrologer, like I could do the math on that. I could get, you know, maybe kind of a little freaked out. It's like, fuck it, man. You know, whatever happens, happens. I'm turning out to be fine. Absolutely fine. Let's see, remember peeps. Yes, 3 months. Thank you, JMP. Can be 3 months. Yes. So luckily I'm even out of that 3-month zone, 3-month phase. This is true. There's a real strong connection with eclipses also roughly about 12 to 13 days prior and after. You're really in still the hot zone of the eclipse. That's for sure. Gentleman's agreement. She wouldn't depose his presidency until April. When I say gentleman's agreement, I mean gentleman's agreement. Let's see. Virgo is Scorpio rising. I'm a bit worried about what those 2 eclipses are going to bring. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Right? Look, I was born on an eclipse. So you just got to go with it. But eclipses are real. They're, you know, I've seen people, look, I've told the story before. I had a client whose rising sign was 28 Leo. She had Pluto and Leo 28 degrees on her ascendant. So the Great American Eclipse happened right on her ascendant and her Pluto. I asked her, I said, what what happened to you during that eclipse? Oh, nothing. And you would think, right? You would think, I said, what about a little bit before? No, I was. So what happened was is that this was a person who had lived a very intense life and was a very high-powered entertainment media person. And her life, the wheels just came off her life. She lost everything. She lost her marriage. She lost her kids. She lost her job. And she wound up going into recovery. And it was a long-term recovery phase. So when that eclipse happened, it was like, so I think we're dealing with intelligent astrological design in some ways. Yeah. Let's see. What else? I have Gemini, my 7th. Lunar eclipse opposite my ascendant. Could be good. Lunar eclipse opposite, so it's going to be on your 7th house cusp. Yeah, well, partnership, agreements. Sometimes things are revealed during eclipses. Remember that, because the theoretical energy of the planet, right, is literally eclipsed. So the thing that it would be known for, or the thing that would normally transpire, now all of a sudden is not transmitting in the way that it has, right, in previously in any other kind of lunar cycles. So when that happens, things can be revealed. Things can be revealed in the darkness or the shadow of the eclipse, or the darkening of the light. There can be revelation during eclipses. And sometimes the revelations can be, external or your own internal revelation. Sometimes the two are the same. It doesn't really matter. So there's also a fated quality to eclipses as well. And people that are born in eclipses tend to have kind of fated lives. Like there are things that happen to them at certain points in their life that are, sort of turning points in some ways. And they don't always have to happen on an eclipse, by the way. So that's another kind of, when I say fate, I'm not a big, fatalistic person with astrology, but these are events that seem to happen at certain points in a person's life that change or alter their life, at a certain point in time. So for instance, when I was around 18 months, I think a little bit younger, maybe 17 months or so. And I got hit with the MMR vaccine, and it didn't work well with me. And I wound up being hospitalized shortly thereafter with spinal meningitis. So at 18 and a half months, I think, I was in the hospital, and I was dying, right? I was dying at 18 months. And they wound up, I was baptized and given my last rites at the same time, because I hadn't been baptized. And my parents and my relatives were there, and they said, "What do you think, Doc?" And he said, "I think you better call the priest." I mean, that's where it was going. And so they brought the priest in, and I got baptized, and I was really given my last rites on the same time. And what was interesting about that is, obviously I survived, kind of miraculously popped up the next day, but I was given a ton of antibiotics, like a ton of antibiotics to get through that thing. And I just read this recently where they have linked antibiotics, a lot of antibiotics at a young age, to ADD, ADHD, allergies, asthma, all kinds of other stuff. So, that I would consider kind of a fated moment, and it had an impact on my life, and a lot of my probably early childhood and my behaviors were predicated on, how that affected my system. Like I was the kid that had the parent teacher conference all the time. So anyway, that's what I talk about by being fated. It doesn't have to happen all the time, but it can happen. And sometimes eclipses can be very powerful, and sometimes they can be real nothings. Like it's not like it's the spin of the wheel, but I think probably you probably want to look at the cycle of the previous eclipse to try to get some information. If something happened then, or you process it then, maybe you're going through like a completion phase with the next eclipse, that they could be linked together, right? So it's always interesting to see where these things are and how they can hit you. So we've got one on tonight, tomorrow, and then we have another on the 14th. So pay attention. They're in Gemini, Sagittarius. Find out where they are in your chart, and kind of eyeball that stuff and see what happens. And I think we have some eclipses that are still going to happen. Let me see here. What do we got? 1 second. Okay, so let me go into 2021 eclipses. Let's travel into the future, shall we? Okay, so we have May 26th. So that's going to be a lunar eclipse. And it looks like that's going to be in Gemini, right? Lunar eclipse in Gemini. Then we have a June 10th solar eclipse. That's in Gemini. And then that takes us out of, well, we have one more Sagittarian eclipse. It's a solar eclipse on the 4th of December of next year. It looks like we have a lunar eclipse on the 18th, 19th, and that's going to be in, if I'm not mistaken, it might be in Scorpio. I'd have to check that. So we're going to have another series of eclipse cycles in 2021 with I'll show you guys. And that's because the nodes are going to continue to be in Gemini and Sagittarius until January of 2022. There you go. All right. I wanted to look at Mike Flynn's chart and Sidney Powell's chart. I've been wanting to look at Sidney Powell's chart for a couple of weeks. So let's bring up Flynn. Oh, I have a new name for people who are suffering. They're suffering under the hands of the World Economic Forum and their draconian reset. It's a condition. It's called claustrophobia. All right, here we go. Okay, Mike Flynn, where are we? Right there. Okay. Now, I just recently found his birth date. I don't know what his birth time is, so I'm kind of. What did I do with Flynn? I think I put him at Aries rising since he's a soldier. Let me see. He's a Taurus. What did I have as his? Let's find out. Yeah, I have him at Aries rising. And I'll give you some of the reasons why I have him at Aries rising. Well, number one, he's military. Number two, he went through. What's really interesting about Flynn is that he was at the final stages of his Saturn return when all that shit went down, when he was basically asked to leave the Trump White House, right? I mean, the whole thing with Russia going over there, the FISA stuff, I mean, that's when he was in the final degrees of his Saturn return. And it had to do with him actually going to Russia, foreign government. So I thought this was an interesting place to start with this chart. He starts his second Saturn return happens right as he's entering the Trump White House, not the Obama White House. He was already there under the Obama White House. This is the Trump White House. So he's born December 24th, 1958, Fort Meade, Maryland. He's a lifer, military lifer. So he's got Sun in Capricorn, second degree. So very early Capricorn. Venus, Capricorn. Somebody knows how to, follow order of protocol. This is what Capricorns do. Saturn and Sun conjunction, different signs, but still heavily Saturnian, very heavily Saturnian. And, he's had Saturn through not just the Saturn return, but Saturn on his Sun, like right after all that stuff started to happen. Right during that time, I think it was even prior to Trump being inaugurated. It was all prior to that, right? He was going to Russia at the behest of Jared Kushner to see how the Russians were going to vote on some UN resolution. It was all a setup. And that's when Saturn was on his sun. And that's pretty heavy. That's a heavy trip. And he had Saturn going from his sun to Venus for what, the better part of a year, because it got up to 11 degrees by November of 2017. And then it retreated and then went back again, crossed over, and was around 12 until 2018, early part of 2018. So he's been dealing with Saturn, pretty heavy Saturn transit. It makes sense, right? I mean, this guy was going through a very trying time. Like literally, he was going through court. So I have him as an Aries rising. Obviously, he's soldier, warrior. But I think that this Saturn up at the top of the chart really maybe, I think, tells a story here. Okay. He's got Mars in Taurus, and he's got his own challenges here. This is, if we throw Chiron in, he's got a Grand Cross. And Mike Flynn and I are contemporaries. He's born 2 years, prior to me. It's really actually a little over, about two years. 2 years prior to me. And so he's part of that Chiron and Aquarius generation who, people that are roughly born between about 55 to about 1961. About 55 to 61 or 54. They've got Chiron and Aquarius. And, these are people that are very different. I think 55 might be Chiron and Capricorn, if I'm not mistaken. I have to look that up. Pretty sure it is. Anyway, so he's eccentric. People of Chiron and Aquarius are eccentric. They're different. They're often ridiculed for being different or ahead of the curve or ahead of their time. And he's got this in this fixed Grand Cross, squaring Mars. How did this guy become a general? I don't know. I mean, I think it's probably the Saturn-Sun conjunction, because he's got a Mars-Uranus square, and that's usually really rebellious. And maybe that's the patriot factor in Mike Flynn. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's the Mars-Uranus square that gives him the patriot factor, that he's not just going to be a 1-star, 2-star, 3-star cutout. Maybe that's what it is. But clearly, being a Sun-Saturn conjunction would be very representative of somebody who would become a general. But he's not your typical general. He's got a Jupiter-Uranus square. This guy's a rule breaker. He can be very by the book, and he can follow orders. You don't get to be a general without following orders. But he's a rule breaker. I would say that with this Grand Cross, Mike Flynn is a maverick, especially with Chiron in Aquarius, right? And Mars in Taurus is stubborn. It's really stubborn. So he's got the Mars-Uranus square, the Jupiter-Mars opposition. Jupiter, of course, on the other side says, hey, there's an opportunity here, kind of go after it, right? Engage with Mars and go after it. But there are impediments. There are definitely impediments. It's an interesting chart. He has Pluto in Virgo at 4 degrees, so it trines his sun. It's very powerful. And again, I'm just taking a stab at his rising sign. So with this rising sign, it would trine his ascendant. I'm sorry, midheaven. And then he's got Mercury in Sag, which, Mercury in Sag is one of those aspects where people at Mercury in Sag know shit without knowing how they know it. Like they can say things or make statements that sound really off the wall, and they're true, but using a particular kind of logic or putting the pieces together in order to get there. They don't always do that. That said, he's got this Uranus trying to Mercury. And again, to me, this is somebody who doesn't play by the rules. This is somebody who can be invested in technology, can be invested in potentially also very different kinds of belief systems. I don't know. I've never seen it. Is he a Christian? I don't know what he is, but I bet you he believes in something other than Christian. I have this feeling that Mike Flynn is esoteric. That's what I think. I think he's got an esoteric side to him. Mercury Uranus trines can be fantastic if they have good timing. He's got a Pluto Mercury square, which builds muscle, builds brain muscle. You know, you have to go through a lot of shit with Mercury Pluto squares. It can be good for research. You know, I'm wondering how much research he did into his own case with a Mercury Pluto square. Neptune here, not, you know, overly afflicted. He's got a nice sextile to the sun right here. There's a softer side of him. He actually has some empathy. True node in Libra. Here's a guy that wants, you know, balance and fairness. So where are we now? We're at the true node transiting at what degree? 19, right? 19 Gemini. That is what? The Libran decan. And where is his true node? It is at 19 Libra. This is Mike Flynn's time. This is his time. He just got pardoned. I think something big is going on with this dude. Now, I've heard through the grapevine that he's going to be leading some 17-nation army. I don't know if that's true or not, but he is now back in circulation. He's been pardoned by Trump. And like I said, what's interesting is the nodal aspect. True node at 19 Gemini right now, transiting in the Libra decan, and he has true node at 19 Libra. Of course, that would be the Aquarian decan, right? Right. Yes, the Aquarian decan. So it's an interesting chart. There's not a lot of fire in this chart. He's got Mercury in Sag, Saturn in Sag, which really puts a lid on the fire. Not a lot of fire here, but I think he's somebody that's capable of loyalty. I don't think he's a flake. He's not a flake. You know, he's got Venus in Capricorn, trine Mars, kind of a wide trine to Pluto. This is not a flake. This is somebody who has follow through. You can count on Michael Flynn. That's what I'm seeing here. Moon sextile Uranus. I mean, the guy's shouting out Tracy Beans. Apparently, he's been hanging out with Millie Weaver. You know, that's one of the things that came up with the whole Millie Weaver thing. Like she was going to the White House and hanging out with Mike Flynn. Like, there's something going on with Flynn now that I think is actually positive. But he's a very mysterious character. I remember about 7 or 8 months ago, I tried to find his birthday. I couldn't even find his birthday. I mean, that's how kind of mysterious this guy is. Is he going to be engaged in some kind of, you know, international war? Maybe he might. I don't know. By the way, I could easily see us getting into a war. I could see that happening. I don't think that that's out of the question. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So there's Mike Flynn. That's his chart roughly, without getting too granular. I think his big issue is timing. And I think he was getting a timing reset, like with what was going on here. Saturn, Sun, Saturn, Venus, like Saturn, Capricorn rules time. And I think he got some kind of a reset. And now I think the timing is much better for him. You know, transiting Juno is on his natal Jupiter, which means that there's potential for new openings, new beginnings, new expansion. It's an interesting time for this guy. Astrologically, true node is coming down to his moon right here, moon in Gemini, 15 degrees, conjunct Trump's sun, moon-sun conjunction. Kind of a wide conjunction, but there nonetheless. And guess what? The eclipse The eclipse is going to get it's just kind of passed over his moon here, but it's going to be around his moon. That's interesting. So now we have another key player where the eclipse is taking place, but it's not happening on a cusp. It's happening in the third house. And I'm wondering if this eclipse will be more liberating for his moon in some ways. There you go. There's the moon coming up right here. You see that? There's the true node. And by the time we reach tomorrow, bang, right there, right there. It's going to cross Algol. All right, so that's Mike Flynn's chart. Now, Sidney Powell is sitting right next to him. And again, I don't have her birth time, so I just took a stab at this thing. And what's interesting is we'll get into this with her chart and Flynn's chart a little bit here when we do some synastry. Powell is a Capricorn, 10 degrees. So her sun and Mike Flynn's Venus are fairly cozy trine. And again, I just threw this up here because she's really prominent right now. And we have Uranus conjuncting her sun, right? I mean, you want to see what a Uranus sun conjunction looks like. Just look at Sidney Powell. Oh, she's crazy. She's cuckoo. She's batshit. She's a conspiracy theorist, right? This is Uranian, and she's out there, and she is like talking big shit. She's talking. She's being. This is some shit. This is some shit talking. Sidney Powell. That's a Uranus Sun conjunction. You're seeing it in action right now. She has been radicalized by Uranus. It's interesting to watch. Her moon is in the conservative sign of Virgo at 11 degrees, trine Mercury, trine the sun. That means she has good hunches. This is somebody who has good hunches. And she's got a moon Mars square. Dude, she has a temper. So, Sidney Powell has a temper. I've never seen that temper. I can see why she, kind of went sideways on Tucker, though. With that, her and Tucker are both Tauruses. A couple of stubborn people. That's what that was about. So she's got a temper. Moon Mars square. Mars and Gemini, guess what? Hello, here comes the moon. We have another kind of interesting eclipse moment. Again, not on a cusp, but on a pretty significant planet. So her Mars and Mike Flynn's moon are conjunct. That makes sense, doesn't it? Yes, it does. She has Jupiter-Uranus conjunction very close, 23-24 in Cancer. And that means she's got that sextile to Mercury. And normally Mercury in Taurus tends to be methodical, perfunctory, patient, right? Wants to make sure everything is lined up, takes its time. But Uranus-Jupiter here speeds up her Mercury. And that sextile to Mercury from Jupiter has got to help in the practice of law. Has to help. So she already went through the nodal her true node already hit her south node, and her transiting south node hit her true node. That's how I see that astrologically is that's a balancing point, right? Where you weak, you become strong, and where you're strong, you can be less strong. Okay. Now she does have the south node in Sagittarius, and she is a lawyer, so that is going to impact her perception of being a lawyer at this time because it's in detriment, but not detriment, but it's in his descendancy. But here, with the true node coming up on Mars in her chart, it's not quite there yet, but it's getting there. That's going to emphasize her warrior side, right? That's going to emphasize her warrior side with the true node getting ready to conjunct her Mars. That's going to be right around February, March, right around there. That'll be powerful. She has Venus in Aries, and again, this kind of works. She's a military lawyer, so Venus, ninth house, law, military relationship, And so she's a fighter. This woman's a fighter. You know, Mars in Gemini is restless. It's clever. It does not stop. It's unceasing. She's got that square to the moon. Boy, you piss this woman off, especially that moon in Virgo, you're gonna get an earful from her. And she has a trine to Chiron, which is interesting. And I think she is able to actually work with material that's really outside the box. Now, she may come off looking like a nut at times with the Chiron square to her sun, but you know, she's probably already like worked that out in her life. The one thing that I think is important to pay attention to with her is the Neptune square to Jupiter. And again, sometimes we talked about that last week, David and I said sometimes Jupiter Neptune square people can, you know, they can overpromise. They can overpromise versus, you know, delivering. They can, you know, create really grandiose kinds of you know, vistas or panoramas or grandiose what I'm looking for, potentialities. No, not even that. Possibilities, grandiose possibilities. But it can be hard to follow through. Now, that said, she does have a trine to Saturn and she does have that sextile to Mercury. So she does have some balance. She does have some follow through. She can work towards the fulfillment of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, which is kind of outside the box and really different. She has enough, I think, gravitas and grounding in order to make that happen. But at the same time, she's also dealing with a lot of hype. Like Jupiter-Neptune squares are hype. And we're seeing a lot of hype with her. She has the Neptune square to Chiron, which I think is more along the lines of how people see her and judge her. You just look at some of the headlines, you know, she's batshit, loony, crazy, conspiracy. I don't think she is. I think this woman fucking sees the truth. She knows what's happening. And she just happens to have Uranus transit on her sun. This is never going to happen again in her life. It hadn't happened before this. Welcome to the Uranus transit, Sidney Powell. You just be as crazy as you want to be. Be as crazy as you want to be. It's going to get weirder, though, because she's got the Uranus-Saturn opposition, and she's going to have pushback from Saturnian types, right? From hierarchical, hierarchical entities. She's going to have some issues there. And I think a lot of her tried and true and trusted alliances are going to be put under kind of extreme duress because this is a woman who's on a different path now, completely different path. And she's got a Saturn-Pluto square. Look at that T-square right there. Pluto, Saturn, and Mercury. Stubborn, man. Fixed T-square. She does not give up. This is a woman who doesn't give up. Does not give up. So check out when we put her and Flynn together. I thought this was kind of interesting. Let's do a little synastry. You'll see where the connections overlap, right? So here we have Flynn. There's his Mars right in the Mercury midpoint, right there, Sidney Powell. And boom, bang on. Bang on. Moon-Mars conjunction. They're connected. These two people are connected. Look at that. Flynn's Jupiter, her Saturn. Yeah, she defended him, right? She defended him. Look at this. His Saturn conjunct her true node. Talk about fated. Wow. These two are connected. They're connected. It's going to be interesting to see what happens to them. Both of them moving forward individually and together, as I think Mike Flynn is going to take a much more active role now moving forward. And she said, we're about to unleash the Kraken. I think Mike Flynn's the Kraken. That's what I think. That's what I think. All right. What do you guys think? I wonder if she has bodyguards. Oh, I'm sure she does. She wrote License to Lie about Enron corruption in the FBI, especially Andrew Weissman, the pit bull on Mueller's team, who is rabidly anti-Trump. I wouldn't mess with Sidney Powell. I would not mess with her. Not with that Mars Moon square. She's got a temper, and Mars Gemini people can be really cutting, super super cutting. What else do we have here? I agree, Joseph. A carrier is obsolete weapon system. Sarah Palin with boots on. Sarah Palin was an Aquarius. I hope she can take them down. Dang, transiting Pluto is opposing that Jupiter Uranus. Yeah, man, she's going through some intense stuff, right? She's going through some intense stuff astrologically. She seems like she has noble intentions and integrity. Everybody who ever has ever talked about Sidney Powell has nothing but high praise for her and her ability to follow through and have commitment. You know, she's going through Uranus conjunction with her sun, man. She's going through changes. Like she's no longer behind the scenes. Hey, Michael, good to see you. This would make a great Doctor Strange movie sequel. She's after Dominion. Yep, she is. Yep. I think we've seen Sydney pissed off already. Well, her and Tucker, a couple of Tauruses, man. They were just not going to agree. Not going to agree. When I hear Powell talk, I hear Yertle the Turtle, my Senator Mitch McConnell. They sound a little bit alike, don't they? They do. Israel fills their pockets. You know, we should take a peek at Israel's chart. Israel's got some issues coming up. Will Biden be an Israel-friendly president or leave them? Will Biden, I'm not even sure, will be president. I'm not even sure Biden's going to be around. I mean, if he is around, he's not going to be, you know, Joe 4.0. He'll be, you know, whatever this guy version is. Biden will be anything you want him to be. You know that song by the Spinner, was it the Spinners? Rubber Band Man. That's Joe Biden. He'll be anything you want him to be. He's already come out and said, "Oh, I'm a Zionist. I love Israel." All that bullshit. He'll be anything. He'll be anything. Totally anything. He's the Rubber Band Man. Let me see. What do we have here? Biden is not. I don't think Biden is going to be elected. You're not going to see a lot of Biden. This eclipse, I'm telling you, hitting his Saturn, like. And then this thing with the dog. What's up with the dog? Like, what is up with the dog? That is not a good sign. That's not a good look. Pompeo seems relaxed. Pompeo. I'll keep my mouth shut. Look, he graduated way at the top of his class in West Point. The guy's been all over the world. Like, you know, if you got me and Mike Pompeo in the same room, he probably, would have 50 stories I would spin my head around. That said, I don't really like the guy. He's not that impressive to me in some ways. He's not. And I don't think he can be trusted. I don't think Mike Pompeo can be trusted. I think Mike Pompeo is part of a third column inside the White House. And all you have to do is watch Pompeo and Birx and Fauci all standing there. And Mike Pompeo says, "Oh, yeah, well, this is a drill or an exercise that's gone live." And Trump's like, "Well, I'm glad you told me." You can't trust Mike Pompeo. Sorry. He's a Capricorn. Not to say all Capricorns are bad, by the way. But I wouldn't trust that guy. What else do we have here? But I never trusted Mike. No. Look, and I'm sure, the guy's really, like I said, I think he graduated top of his class, West Point, Mr. CIA guy. He knows all these people. He's been all around the world. I don't know. Not the vibe. I don't dig the vibe. I don't dig the vibe at all. My dad was in RLI in the 70s. Are we in those energies again? What is RLI? What is RLI? What is that? Biden forgot the dog was there. Dementia. Remember McCain, Pete Wilson, and Pompeo. Ooh, Pete Wilson. Ugh. Scum. Scum, scum, scum. First interview with Fight Like a Flynn. Okay. Please take a listen for yourselves. Look, I think Mike Flynn is the Kraken. I think that's who the Kraken is. I think it's Mike Flynn. And I think once they pardoned him, Sidney Powell said, we're going to release the Kraken, and that's the pardon. I think it's Mike Flynn. CI, GI, Steele, Pompeo. I think Biden's on house arrest. Could be. That could very well be, because apparently now he's got to wear like some kind of an ankle brace because he tripped and fell. What's it really covering up? That's what I think. Yes. Allegedly cracking his 305 battalion. Well, I think Mike Flynn is going to, what? Is he going to be the commander of that battalion? I think he's the Kraken. I think Mike Flynn is the Kraken. I think that and it could be, by the way, Jan, there's a software, I think there could be multiple Kraken meanings. Multiple Krakens. General Flynn is the Kraken. Yeah, I think he is. I think he is. I think they're releasing him now. It's exactly what's happened. And okay, so let's get to war talk. Okay. RBN host and my uncle passed on November 22nd. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that. 11/22. That was the day Kennedy was shot. Kraken equals Leviathan. Yes, Leviathan. But come on, man. Biden wearing dog socks a few days ago. Oh, good call. Good call. He was wearing those dog socks, wasn't he? Was it dog socks or alligators? He had something. I think he may have had both. That's interesting. Let's see. 305th MI Fort Huachuca. Is he formerly under command of Flynn, home of Army intelligence? I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, Flynn is about to get cracking. All right, let's talk. Let's have a war talk. Let's have a war talk. If you go back and you look at the Saturn cycles that have been in Aquarius, the last two major Saturn cycles, 1962 was when Saturn went into Aquarius. Okay. That was a time where every time we get to the Saturn Aquarius transit, there's the possibility for formal change, right? Uranus, Aquarius represents change. That's what's going on with Sidney Powell. Her life is changing. She's being electrified by Uranus. Saturn is formality. Saturn's formality. Saturn is, it's agreements. Right? Saturn is like a binding contract. That's why Saturn in Libra is exalted. It's a binding contract. So when we have Saturn in Aquarius, we have a formal aspect of change, cultural, societal, and time. Okay. When Saturn was in Aquarius in 1962, we were headed, and I've said this before, down a very different path with JFK. No prince. He's not a prince. JFK had issues, but I take his issues over just about any other president past that, their issues. And then what happens? Kennedy is killed. He's killed. Saturn's in Aquarius. And now what could have been the formal application of change gets completely twisted. The timeline is diverted. And now we have Johnson running the show. And Kennedy was one of those characters, one of those people who is global. He was global. He was the first television president. He was the first president to reach, the planet in ways that the other American presidents have not. So he had the possibility and the potential of not just affecting change in the United States, but around the world. His speech in Germany was greeted with absolute love and zeal and vigor by the German people. That was the promise of Kennedy. And then Johnson comes in and everything changes. It shifts and we get moved onto another timeline. And instead of having this very powerful global transformation that I think really could have occurred, we get mired in Vietnam, which is it's not quite a global conflict, but it's certainly an international one, and it impacts the rest of the world in a lot of ways. It really impacts the United States. We have all the chicanery that Johnson pulls with the war on poverty and the Great Society. It moves us in a very, very different direction. Very different direction. It looks Aquarian on the surface, right? Oh, we're going to end poverty. Where have you heard that one before? Like, where have you heard that one lately? Oh, we're going to end poverty. You know, we're going to have equity. I mean, really what they're doing is they're creating a new war on poverty and a new Great Society, and they're just rebranding it and calling it the Fourth Industrial Revolution and the Great Reset. And that was all Saturn and Aquarius. That all happened with Johnson. And then, you know, things go to hell. Really, they do. But that was an opening, and, you know, they closed it. They closed it. Fast forward, we go to 1990, 1991. Saturn's back in Aquarius. What happens? We go to war in Iraq, a coalition of the willing, 1,000 points of light, right? This is what happens. And then what does Bush do? He signs the Rio Summit, the Rio Accord Summit, right? The Rio Summit Accord. He signs off on Agenda 21. Again, it's kind of like, hey, we're going to make the world better for everybody now. Even though the document has not been really seen, we would believe that he did go there and sign the Rio Accord. Also, with Saturn and Aquarius, it is the pronouncement of the New World Order under Saturn and Aquarius. So you see, every time we get to these Saturn and Aquarius points where we can have formal change, they basically take and rearrange the set. And it began to happen again when the coronavirus hit. Saturn was in Aquarius. Oh, guess what? The world is in a big fucking trouble now. We're going to have to lock down. We're going to have to wear masks. We're going to have to crash the economy. Saturn in Aquarius, making it a global event. You see what's happening? Now, we got wild cards. Jupiter-Saturn conjunction on the 21st. All the planets are going to be on this side of the sun. They're all visible, right? There's some very interesting gravitational effects that are coming our way. It's called the anomaly. And we have it on the winter solstice. And this is essentially, was it 3 years? 3 years after Donald Trump signed executive orders when Saturn went into Capricorn on the winter solstice. I've never seen that before. Like, Saturn went into Capricorn on the winter fucking solstice, and Trump signs 8 executive orders. Now here we come, right? Saturn's moving signs again, happening on the winter solstice again, right? This time Jupiter's there, and it's big. Here's the other deal. Oh, I got to talk about the eclipse. I was talking with a buddy of mine. He brought something to my attention. I'm going to bring this up. Jupiter is conjunct Saturn now. Well, will be, I'm sorry, on the 21st. And I do believe that we will be thrust into a global event more than what we're experiencing now. And we are in a global event now. The challenge with this global event is that it is a really dark global event. And we're united through a form of tyranny and oppression with this idea that these mandates or these rules or these orders are being essentially pressed upon us for our own good, right? For the well-being and the betterment of the rest of the world, and for the greater good. Well, we all know that it's really not for the greater good, and really it's for the lesser good, which are the people that are constructing this nightmarish reality, which is really, coalescing around us right now. But the 21st is a very important time. And I think that there is a very good possibility. I even look like I'm going to war tonight. I didn't plan it this way, but I look like I've got some kind of military thing on, right? Here I am. I'm ready. I'm ready to go behind enemy lines. Anyway, I think we could be going to war, like in a very formal way, like fourth generation, fifth generation stuff, I'm sure. But I think this thing could go global. And I don't know what I think the firepower that they potentially have is not limited to the United States. And Glenn Streeter sent me a video of a guy who's a vet. He was talking about like there are 17 nations that want to get behind. Like they've got a 17 nation, theoretically, this is theoretical now, something I've heard, okay? We've got a 17 nation coalition that's willing to or ready to go, and under the guise of, like, I don't know, liberating, kids in caves or whatever. I think that might be just an excuse. I think something big is coming. I think something really big is coming. And I think it does have to do with war. I think in order to, do battle with the forces of good and evil, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. The evil puppet masters, the Klaus Schwabs and the Bill Gateses, and the Justin Trudeaus and all the people that are, pay grades above them. I don't think we're just going to roll. I don't think it's going to happen. But it's not going to be like the lights go off and the lights come back on and everybody's ascended. I don't think it's going to happen that way. It's not going to happen that way. So I would say be prepared. Be prepared for something that, and I'm not here to sell war with Iran. I think it's a bunch of bullshit. I mean, that could happen, but I think, that's low hanging fruit. And I don't think Israel wants to go to a war with Iran. I don't. I think that there's other things going on. But if something looks like it's going to, wobble and go off the charts, and it looks like we're headed into some form of conflict, don't freak out. Don't freak out, because this thing is going to have to balance itself out somehow. And I feel like Flynn is probably a pivotal character here. That's what it feels like. It feels like, he's been exonerated and pardoned at a very specific time. And we're in new territory. We're in very, very new territory. And we have Mars in Aries, and it's going to be squaring Pluto, and it's going to be squaring Saturn, and it's going to be squaring Jupiter, and it's going to be intense. It's going to be very intense. And I'm not sure we're going to be able to sit home and, watch the daily rushes as, this, if indeed it does go down this way, that this, kind of conscripted army of a number of different participating nations, rolls over the opposition. I'm not sure it's going to go down like that. It could get very hot in this country, in the United States. It could get hot in other parts of the world. So about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I just kept telling people, you better get right with God. You better get right with yourself. Just try to, this is the time. I was talking about this a year and a half, 2 years ago, because I could see what was coming. And it's still not too late for that. You could still find, not that I'm saying that you're going to evaporate or die or whatever. But it's important now because of the times that we're in. You have to be at peace with who you are and whatever you've done in your life or whoever you've done it with. You've got to be able to be there, right? You have to be able to be there because, number one, if something did happen, well, guess what? You're a leg up. Number two, if it came down to having to say you don't consent to something, and you will back up that consent with your very own life or non-consent with your very own life, then you know what it'll need to take, and you're okay with that. We have to make decisions. Like, I don't want to be a fucking martyr. I'd like to live for a while. I'd like to get on the other side of this thing and see what we're capable of. But at the end of the day, if something is going to force me to do something against my will, and I've already made a decision where I am with that, and I'm okay with that. And if the moment comes and I'm having to stare that down, I may have another chapter. I may have another few sentences to add to that story. But you've got to have this in place. You have to have it in place. And it doesn't mean you're thinking negatively. It doesn't mean you're going to draw the event to you, right? Disabuse yourself of that. It's called mindset. So that if the thing happens, you know what to do. You're already at peace with it. And then if it doesn't happen, then man, it's gravy, okay? It's gravy. You're not surrendering and you're not giving up, but you have to know where your limit and where your line is and what kind of world you want to live in or not live in. And then you begin to live accordingly. And I'm not some like great, like, I'm not an adrenaline junkie. I used to do some adrenaline stuff as a kid. I'm not an adrenaline junkie. I fought in some karate tournaments when I was a kid. I boxed a little bit, but I wouldn't call myself a brawler. I don't start fights. That's not my nature, right? This is not, that's not who I am in some ways on that level. But when it comes to principles and morals and ideas, there's another side that I kick in with. And, and I think we have to develop that, right? We have to develop those parts of ourselves that, we can invest in. We can really invest in. So it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. And once you can make some of these decisions, you can be at peace with yourself. And guess what? It's liberating. It's totally liberating because you're not dependent upon how other people perceive you or how other people are going to determine your future, your reality. It's very liberating. So I would suggest it. Try it on for size. And guess what? You're not saying it's going to happen. You're not saying, oh, I'm going to create my reality. No, that's not it at all. Oh, I'm invested in a very different kind of reality. But if push comes to shove, I know what my options are and I know what they're not. And you may want to give it some thought yourself. Okay. And I know a lot of you have families and friends and a lot of stuff that you have to protect. And you know what? I got some of those things in my life too. And I'm not willing to let them go or give them up so quickly or easily. And at the same time, we have to be able to make peace with ourselves and make peace with our choices and make peace with what we're willing to accept or not accept. And that's the way it is. Let's see what else. Remember, this eclipse, what did she say? This eclipse does it the U.S. chart. It's close. Let's pop up the U.S. chart now that you brought that up. Okay, here we go. Ba-ba-doo-ba-ba-ba-ba. Where are we? Come on now. Come on, man. All right, where are we? Let's see. Oh, yes. I just had it. I'll get it back. I have two United States charts. I don't know why. All right, which one is it? There's this one. Here we go. Right there. Okay, let's do natal chart and transits. And then I got one more thing for you guys before I split. It's pretty cool. Okay. All right, so here is the US chart right here. And the moon will be right there on Uranus in Gemini. I'll tell you, man, when the United States goes through its Uranus return, that's going to be an interesting time. To me, that's like that is the beginning of the new golden age. The Uranus return, Pluto and Aquarius. It's going to be a very, very interesting time. So we might have some foreshadowing here with the eclipse as it relates to the US's Uranus return. We're not that far away, by the way. And it's going to be happening right around here in the seventh house of the United States chart. So the relationship to duality, two presidents, right, which is kind of what we have now theoretically. Contracts, agreements, accords, broken, eclipsed, occulted. Interesting stuff. Over here, when we get to the 14th, when the sun will be right around 24 degrees, roughly Sagittarius, it won't be on the United States ascendant. Now, of course, I do use the Sibley chart, but it will be taking place in the United States first house. That'll be interesting too. Very interesting. I think some of the eclipses next year, like the December 4th eclipse of next year, will be on the United States sun. That's an eclipse to pay attention to. And that's a year out from now. So we're looking at still more of these uh, Gemini Sagittarius eclipse cycles. We're not done. We're really just kind of getting into the mix of this stuff. Because you go back to June 21st, that eclipse was in Cancer, right? Zero Cancer. So we were just ending that eclipse phase with Capricorn and Cancer. So we're in roughly another year-long eclipse cycle of these polaric energies of Sagittarius and Gemini. So the story, I think, will likely be finished with this eclipse cycle by December of next year, when that eclipse does happen right on the United States ascendant. That'll be an interesting time. Now, what I found out from a good buddy of mine today, and I do follow the Arguez dream spell every now and then, right? Every now and then I pop in and I look at, where are we on the dream spell, aka Arguez's version of the Mayan calendar. So I'm going to show you something which I think is really interesting as it relates to the Mayan calendar. My bad. I just stepped into the void for a moment. Okay, so I'm going to show you. This is the Argueus dream spell, and this is the day for the 14th, the solar eclipse, conjunct the galactic center. It is the very end of the Mayan calendar. Right there. Right there. So I think the real end of the Mayan calendar is on 12/14/2020. That's it. Right there. This is in the Argueus, not the long count, the Argueus wave spell. 12/14/2020. With the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, right? On the no, it's not quite there. My bad. That's a week out from there. Week out. My bad. So this is a how. A how is the final day sign. There are 20 day signs, 13 months, 20 days, right? All lunar, right there. That's the end, boys and girls. That's the end of a cycle, and it's happening on the 14th of December. I endured in order to enlighten, transcending life. I seal the matrix of universal fire with the cosmic tone of presence. I am guided by the power of flowering. I am a galactic activation portal. Enter me. Right there. Christ consciousness. That's what a how is. Right? And this is the deliverance point right there. Interesting stuff, huh? Interesting stuff. Anyway, you're on the journey. You're along for the ride. Take it all in while you can, and be fully present. And life will go on. We are still going to be here. We're still going to be living. We're still going to be breathing. We are still going to be loving. We're still going to be learning. That is the nature of the infinite journey. So thank you for being here tonight and being a part of tonight's live stream. I am still doing readings, by the way. And it's actually really cool and a good time to get readings, try to understand your own personal cycles. I can do all kinds of interesting stuff with relocation, relationships. So that's happening, and I'm pretty busy and still doing that. And come on by robertphoenix.com if that is up your alley, and to be able to help you out. So thanks for being here tonight. I will be back tomorrow for 15 minutes of flame. So I'm out of here. Bye for now. By the way, Chatlandia, you are the best. And I mean that. You're the best. You know why? Because I've been cruising some other chat rooms. And some of them are pretty good. Pretty good. I mean, some love out there for some other chat rooms. But this is unique. You guys are unique. Very different, very special. And I'm proud to be connected with you on our journey together. And, we're all gonna find our purpose on the island of misfit toys. All right. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great night. Bye for now.